Hey guys, ThePerfectG here bringing you the Solo Olm 4-to-1 guide. This is a very difficult piece of content to master. There are loads of things that go into getting into the 4-to-1 cycle quickly and easily that will honestly take loads of practice and persistence. As always, if you have any questions about PvM or Solo Olm especially, feel free to comment below, hop into my Discord, or DM me directly. I'm more than happy to set up a time to help coach you through some KC as long as you've tried it at least one time on your own, whether that be for mage running, the melee hand, or the entire Olm itself. And although I'll be going over everything you need to know, I'll be referencing other guides that could give you more perspective and linking them down below. I would highly suggest watching them as well. Don't forget to read the description. Good luck and enjoy. So what is 4-to-1? 4-to-1 is a phrase meaning you hit Ohm 4 times with your melee weapon, and Ohm can only hit you back 1 time. In almost all scenarios, this is the best method to defeating Ohm's melee hands. However, there are some other methods people speak about that can make it sound a bit confusing. There's 1-to-0, multiple types of 3-to-1, mage 7-3, melee 7-3, the list goes on. The key thing to remember is that with things like 4-to-1, the first number is how many times you hit the boss to how many times the boss hits you back. Each section of this video is set up to assist you, the raider, in understanding the section after. So we'll go over the basics of the Ohm cycle, then 1-to-0, 3-to-1, and then how to use these concepts in setting up what I call the assumed 4-to-1. At the end of it all, we'll go over how to tackle issues that occur when you're in the 4-to-1 cycle and a cheeky way to instantly get into the 4-to-1 cycle on the final phase. On screen, you're seeing me fighting the Ohm hand using the 4-to-1 method. The path that I move my character and the tiles that I attack from are what I refer to as the 4-to-1 pathway. Once you get the hang of solo, this pathway will be your goal. So, how do we achieve this goal? So let's first go over Ohm's cycle. Ohm has a 4-attack cycle. These 4 attacks, in short, are an auto attack, then a null where Ohm does not attack, then a second auto attack, and then a special. All of these actions occur 4 ticks apart from each other, which is the same time frame as a whip or a lance. Each time Ohm does a special, it will be the next in line, starting with a crystal burst, where the crystals pop from underneath you, then lightning from the walls, and then a pairing portal where you'll have to run to a random tile in the room. On the final phase, there is a 4th special, which is a healing effect symbolized by an infinity sign on top of the melee hand, but we'll go more into that later. An easy way to remember the general cycle is auto, null, auto, special, or ANUS for short. One of the main things that confuses people are the unique auto attacks. These unique auto attacks are attacks that occur during specific phases of Ohm, so Flame Walls and Burn With Me will occur during the Flame phase. Acid Trails and Acid Splats occur during the Acid phase, and Crystal Trails and Crystal Bombs will occur during the Crystal phase. These unique auto attacks and the Prayer Draining Orbs are not specials. They occur in place of the standard mage and ranged attacks, and they can only occur 1 time between each special attack. This means if you see a Crystal Burst special, you won't see more than 1 unique auto attack before you see the Lightning special. I'll leave a link in the description for a video that explains the basics of Ohm's attack cycle in depth, but it gets really confusing, so if it's something that you feel is holding you back, don't worry. There are ways to set up 4-to-1 without knowing the ins and outs of the Ohm cycle. But for now, let's focus on the fight itself. If you recall from the guide on how to mage run, also known as 3-to-0, you may know that you attack the mage hand on the same tick that Ohm would attack, or in the case of 3-to-0, when Ohm turns his head. The difference with the melee hand is that you actually attack 1 tick after Ohm does his attack. So when you're getting into the rhythm, a strategy suggested by some is to wait next to the thumb on Ohm's melee hand while hovering your cursor over the melee hand. When you see Ohm bob his head to attack, you click the hand and you automatically attack Ohm 1 tick after he attacks you. Aatykon has a nice short video explaining how and when to use this method to get into cycle, but as he says himself in the video, there are a lot of flaws with using this method. One of those flaws is of course flame walls, and also you're going to possibly tank a lot of hits from Ohm before you actually get into the rhythm. It is an extremely easy way to do it, but it does assume that you're not on the final phase and that you also already know the pathway for 4-to-1. So how do I suggest getting into cycle? There's a method called 1-to-0. This method is extremely low DPS and uses a lot of run energy, but as the name suggests, you hit Ohm 1 time and Ohm hits you back 0 times. Using this method alongside 3-to-0 for the mage hand will almost guarantee that you can get deathless KCs every time after just a couple of tries. It's going to require at least 1 extra stamina or purple sweets to do this method for the whole KC, but learning this method will benefit you greatly in the long run, especially if you use my guide. As you can see on screen, I'm attacking Olm one time and running back and forth between tile 1, labeled as mid skip, and tile 3, labeled as right side. The timing of clicking to attack the hand from tile 1 is the same motion you're going to make for the first attack of 4 to 1. Using True Tile Indicator can actually help immensely in getting used to the timing a bit quicker, but I'll link a video in the description of a good visual of this method by Trout Gang's head honcho, Dear Lolo1. Learning how to do this, like I said, has many benefits, but even when you get really good at Solo Olm, you can always use the 1 to 0 method to fall back on in case you ever run low on supplies during the fight. But the fact that the timing to attack the hand is the same on 1 to 0 as the first attack on 4 to 1 gives it enough merit to be worth learning. The next step in learning Solo Olm is 3 to 1. This is not something that I actually suggest doing as a means to defeating Olm, but as a way to get into the 4 to 1 cycle. This method, in short, means that you attack Olm 3 times and Olm attacks you once. However, that is almost never the case. The issue with doing 3 to 1 as your main method is that when Olm does his one attack, it's going to be a different attack each time. This is because you're attacking 3 times and Olm has a 4 attack cycle. Quick maths. It just doesn't add up. So at first you may get lucky with a simple auto attack like major range, but then during your next 3 hits, you may be hit with a pairing portal special where you get flung across the room and then have to get back into rhythm again. The standard 3 to 1 looks like this on screen. Just like 1 to 0, you attack from the middle left and run to the pinky, but instead of running back left again, you attack for a second time on that right side. After your second attack, you run to the thumb and do a third attack there. Olm's attack occurs while you're running from the right towards the thumb between your second and third hits. As soon as you land your third hit, immediately run back to the middle left and click to attack the hand again. You'll then repeat this over and over again until you get a portal and have to stop. I don't want to go too in depth on 3 to 1 yet because I truly don't think it's a method to beating Olm, but it is something you need to know in case you mess up the 4 to 1 cycle, so I'll go over it more in depth later in the video as it becomes more relevant. So the $1,000,000 question: what is the easiest, most brain dead way to get into 4 to 1? This is where my guide will differ from others. First, we're going to start with a simple 1 to 0. Recall earlier when I said the timing to attack during 1 to 0 is the same timing to attack the first hit of 4 to 1. You could do a couple rotations of 1 to 0 while you get ready to set this up. Equip your 4-tick melee weapon whenever you're ready, and when you reach tile 1, click the hand to attack it and immediately run to tile 3 on the right side. Just like how we went over 3 to 1, you're going to stay on this right side, but instead of only hitting 1 time, you're going to hit 2 times. This will be where you do your second and third hits. As soon as you land your third attack, begin running to the thumb and do your fourth hit there. As soon as you land that fourth attack, immediately move to tile 1 and repeat the process. If you only tank one attack, and that attack is either an auto attack or a unique auto attack, then you're already in 4 to 1. But if it were always that simple, I wouldn't have to make a guide for it. There are going to be 4 total possibilities when you do this method, and automatically being in 4 to 1 is the first possibility. Now, before we go into the other 3 possibilities, I want to explain what Olm is doing during 4 to 1. When you attack from the middle tile and head to the right, Olm's head will be in the middle and then move to the right as well. That turning of his head is happening because no one is in his sight to attack, so assuming you're in the 4 to 1 already, you just skipped his special. That means his next attack is going to be an auto, and as I mentioned before, it will occur between the second and third hits that you do to Olm. After that auto will be the null. The null occurs between your third and fourth attacks. After that null, Olm is going to do a second auto attack, but because we're already in the 4 to 1 cycle, you're not going to see it, because after your fourth attack from the thumb tile, you run back to the middle and then repeat. Now while you run to the middle, Olm's head turns from the right to the middle as well, because again, you're not in his sights. That turning of Olm's head from the right to the middle is you skipping the second auto attack. From there, you would just repeat the cycle by attacking from the middle to the thumb and heading to the right side, skipping Olm's next special. This is the most ideal situation, and it does require a bit of luck to be in the 4 to 1 cycle already, so let's just go over some other things that could happen. For the second possibility, let's take it back to the beginning. You start with your 1 to 0, and when you're ready, attack the thumb from tile 1 to the middle and head to the right. Do your second and third hits. If the attack that occurs between your second and third hits is an auto, great, keep going to the thumb and do your fourth hit. But if you're not in 4 to 1, Ohm could do a second attack instead of a null while you head to the thumb. So let's say he does another auto attack. This means you're in a cycle called 4 to 2. You're attacking Ohm 4 times and Ohm is attacking you 2 times. Now before I explain how to fix this, I just want to clarify something. If you're in the 4 to 2 cycle, that isn't totally horrible. If you keep repeating this, you'll just tank twice as many hits, but he'll never do a special. But that isn't really the best way to look at it, so let's fix it. After you hit on the thumb while tanking Ohm's second auto attack, skip to the middle like normal. But instead of doing another 4 attacks, you're only going to do 3. This is where 3 to 1 becomes the most relevant. You'll do your first hit on the thumb and run to the right and attack 1 time. As soon as you do your second attack, run to the thumb and do your third hit just like how I described 3 to 1 earlier. Ohm's attack will occur between your second and third hits. Immediately as you land your third attack, move to tile 1 again to skip and you'll be in the 4 to 1 cycle. The next thing that could occur that Ohm will do is his auto attack like normal between your second and third hits, but instead of doing a second auto attack between your third and fourth hits, he could do a special. So for simplicity's sake, let's just say it's a crystal burst or a lightning special. So from the top, do your 1 to 0 rotations and attack from tile 1, and then run to the right. Do your second and third hits, taking Ohm's first attack, which in this possibility is an auto attack, and then run to the thumb and do your fourth hit. While you're running to the thumb, you'll get a special. This is different than 4 to 2 because if you keep this rhythm, Ohm will do a different special every time, so you have to fix this immediately. When you do your fourth hit and notice that special, dodge it and do 2 more attacks. This means instead of having done 4 attacks, you do 6. Now there are a few advanced things you could worry about here, but just to keep it simple, do your 5th hit anywhere on the hand and move back to the thumb tile to do that 6th hit. However, between your 5th and 6th hit, Ohm is going to throw another auto at you. But once you do your 6th attack from the thumb, simply skip to the middle and you're in the 4 to 1 cycle. Now I know this sounds confusing, but let's summarize it just a bit. You'll do your first 3 attacks while Ohm does 1 auto, then you'll do your 4th attack while Ohm does his next attack special, then you stay on the thumb and do a 5th attack while Ohm does a second auto attack, then you do your 6th hit during his null. Finally, you mid skip and you're in 4 to 1. So you do 6 hits, Ohm does an auto and then a special and then another auto. Now I'll be showing more examples of this later in the video, but for now let's just go over the final possibility. For the final possibility, let's say you do your 1 to 0 and begin the assumed 4 to 1 rhythm. You attack on thumb and head to the right and do your second attack. As you're about to do your third attack, Ohm does a special instead of the auto attack that we've gone over so far. Just like normal, run to the thumb and do your 4th hit. But instead of going to the middle to skip, stay on the thumb and do a 5th attack. After that 5th attack from the thumb tile, you skip to the middle and you're in 4 to 1. Now I have to admit, I don't know whether this sounds more or less confusing than the previous possibility, but it will look a bit more confusing when you're learning it and actually doing it. Let me explain why that is. Recall earlier when I explained what Ohm is actually doing during 4 to 1. When you're in the 4 to 1 cycle and Ohm turns his head from the middle to the right during your first attack, that head turning is you skipping the special. However, in the current possibility where you get a special instead of the auto attack, that means instead of skipping that special attack when Ohm turned from the middle to the right, you actually skipped an auto attack. More precisely, you skipped the auto attack before the special. Now that sounds a little redundant, but it is important. Now you may notice when you're on team raids or solos if you've tried already, sometimes Ohm does 2 auto attacks back to back, seemingly with no null in between them. This is because when you skip an auto attack, Ohm tries to catch up to himself. So if you skip the auto attack before the null, he'll do an auto attack instead of the null, and then do another auto attack because he's back in cycle. Knowing this, let's go back to the possibility number 4 we were just discussing. When you skip the auto attack during your first hit of 4 to 1, you're going to get that special between your second and third hits. However, because Ohm has to catch up to himself, you'll get an auto and a special at the exact same time. This means as you run from the right to the thumb to do your 4th hit, Ohm will do another auto attack since he's caught up in his cycle. So in total, you will do 5 hits instead of 4, and Ohm will do a special and 2 auto attacks. Now, these are the four main possibilities that could happen, and this is important to know because eventually, however you start 4 to 1, if you ever get out of rhythm, one of these four things could happen. So let's just summarize it real quickly, all four of them in a very simple way. Start with 1 to 0 and assume you're in the 4 to 1 already. If you only get one auto attack, you're already in 4 to 1. If you get two auto attacks, skip to the middle and do a 3 to 1, skip to the middle again, and you're in 4 to 1. If you get an auto attack and then a special, do a total of 6 hits instead of 4, and then skip to the middle and you're in 4 to 1. If you get a special attack, you'll do a total of 5 hits instead of 4, and then skip to the middle and you're in 4 to 1. Do not forget that a unique auto attack could occur instead of one of the regular auto attacks. This means you may have to do some fancy footwork, but the amount of attacks will not change. And also, that when you get a special, it could be a portal. If it's ever a portal, just simply run to the tile to handle it, and then get back into the 4 to 1 by doing your 1 to 0 rotations again. If you're on the final phase of Olm, that special could be a healing special. Now there's a dozen ways to handle the healing special, but just to keep it simple, avoid some hits by running across the room and back, and then once it disappears, do your 1 to 0 rotations and get back into cycle. Now I know it seems like knowing the cycle is important, but really all four of the possibilities are just you counting hits, and when you see certain things happen. Once you really know the cycle, you can just know immediately how many attacks you have to do. So, like for example, if you kill the mage hand and switch to melee immediately, and you see a crystal burst special, you'll know that you have to do 2 more attacks and then mid skip. This is the same thing we mentioned way earlier when we brought up Aatykon's method. And although starting with 1 to 0 to get into the timing is a massive loss of DPS, I believe it builds good habits if you know why you're doing it, which will make you better in the long run. So if you can do all of these things, why learn more? I mentioned a moment ago fancy footwork might be needed to avoid some of the damage if the auto attacks are replaced with unique auto attacks. For example, a flame wall could trap you, or it could block your pathway to 4 to 1. So what you see on screen now is the 4 to 1 you saw in the beginning during the intro. Following this pathway means that if I ever get a flame wall, I'll simply dodge it. Again, like I said before, with the exception of this fancy footwork, nothing changes. In any of the four possibilities other than a teleport portal or a healing special, you can simply continue doing this method to get into 4 to 1. So to do the method on screen, simply set up the same way by doing your 1 to 0 rotations. When you go from the middle to start your 4 to 1, do one attack on thumb like normal and run to the right. Do your second attack and then back up to the right diagonally, and just before you would do your third attack, you go to the middle of the hand and then do your third attack. After you attack, simply wait one tick and then move to the thumb and attack for the fourth time. If it's already in 4 to 1, great. If you get the second auto during the run to thumb, do a 3 to 1 to fix it. If that second attack is a special, you'll do your fourth hit and know that you have to do 2 more, totaling 6. But during those 2 extra attacks, you'll get another auto. So what I like to do is run back to the middle of the hand and then back to the thumb again just before I do my 5th hit. This way, if that second auto is a flame wall, we dodge it. Now I have a video on how to handle flame walls that would block your path, which I'll link down in the description below. But another possibility is that the first attack Olm does is a special which occurs between your second and third hits. And you can continue as normal, but you still just wait one tick in the middle of the hand before you head to thumb. This way, if the following auto is a flame wall, again, we dodge it. Now doing it this way is the safest way to not take damage. However, what if the unique auto attack isn't a flame wall? If it's a crystal trail, just move back and forth to dodge it. As long as you do your final hit on the thumb, it will always work out okay. If the unique auto attack is an acid trail, there's a dozen ways to run them. But for now, focus on doing your attacks. Run around but stay close to the hand so you can do your final hit on the thumb. If you end up out of cycle because of this, simply do 1 to 0 again to get back into the rhythm. It's okay to take some damage during acid trails, but your priority is to maintain damage by constantly hitting the hand when you're supposed to. This way, you can stay in the 4 to 1 cycle. Now, whether you have to brew up or not is another story, but brewing won't stop you from attacking, so just keep attacking and always make sure your last hit is on the thumb tile. Now that we've gone over how to get into 4 to 1 in an easy way with 4 general possibilities using 1 to 0, let's go over some solves for common issues. Now, what happens if you're doing 4 to 1, but you miss a tick somewhere and you're late to the mid skip after your fourth hit? You'll know you were late because you tank an auto attack on the way to the middle. If this happens, simply just wait one tick on tile 1 in the middle and then attack again. All you have to do is a 3 to 1. Now, you know this is the case because that auto that you just tanked was the second auto during the cycle. Recall from before, if you're doing 4 to 1 and you tank 2 autos, you do a 3 to 1 to fix it. This is the same solve. However, one of the main issues with 3 to 1 is that if you get a flame wall, your pathway is going to get blocked. Now, the flame wall video I mentioned before in the description will solve this, but we can actually prevent it entirely. A better way to do 3 to 1 when you're using it to get into the 4 to 1 cycle is instead of running all the way to the right, run to the middle of the hand and do your second attack there, and then run to the thumb for your third attack. Instead of Olm attacking you between your second and third hits, he'll actually attack you between your first and second hits. This means you'll be able to blank the flame walls that happen because Olm's head will be facing the middle, which means you'll actually be on the invisible edge of Olm's peripheral vision, which is a wall. While you do your third attack, Olm will be on his null, so he'll turn his head to the right. Now, if you're in the forward 1 and you go to the middle early, you'll click to attack the thumb, but the head will still be facing the right. As soon as you notice that the head is not turning, click back to the middle again, wait for one tick, and if Olm attacks you with an auto while you ran to or from the thumb early, do a 3 to 1 like mentioned before and fix it. If there's no auto, then you're still in 4 to 1. Next, let's tackle noodling. If your second and third hits of the 4 to 1 cycle are both zeros, Olm will turn his head to the middle early during the null. The short answer is just do nothing differently. When you do your fourth hit on thumb and mid skip, Olm will just hit you with an auto attack, but you could just continue as normal. If, however, you want to save some run energy, you can run to the middle of the hand after your fourth hit and attack there. Olm will attack you and you move to the right. The attack from the middle of the hand is the same part of the cycle as the first hit of 4 to 1. So when you move to the right, causing Olm's head to turn, that's him skipping a special. And you'll do your second and third attacks, and then fourth hit on the thumb. Another thing I'd like to mention is if you do the cheeky 3 to 1, where you do your second hit in the middle of the hand instead of the right, but your first two lance hits are zeros, Olm's head won't turn. So just like noodling in 4 to 1, you can either do nothing differently and just tank the extra auto, or move back to the middle of the hand after your final hit and continue from there with 4 to 1. The final thing I want to go over regarding 4 to 1 is the final phase. Now on the final phase, the melee hand can't cripple even if the mage hand is still alive. Typically, you're meant to kill both hands at the same time so that you can move on to the final head phase. However, when the third phase starts, you're able to do 2 hammer specs from the right side of the hand and then run all the way to tile 1 in the middle to skip. This will put you into 4 to 1 instantly during the final phase. Now the reason that you do your hammer specs from the right side of the hand is because if you do it from the thumb or the middle of the hand, you'll have to wait 1 or 2 ticks when you go to the middle to skip. If you do the hammer on the right side of the hand, you can use the same motions you've been using this whole time and immediately start 4 to 1. And also, doing it on the right side guarantees that the head will turn to the right. If you start from the middle or the thumb tile, but your hammers both hit zeros, Olm will actually hit 0. And just like noodling we just went over before, you could just do nothing differently and continue the cycle as normal. This is extremely beneficial to know because, especially for learners, but even later on, if you're using a Sanguinesti staff, you can actually kill the melee hand first and then use the mage hand to heal. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. I really do hope it helps. I know it was extremely long and I tried to go over every important detail without adding any extra or useless information in the most concise and understandable way possible. If you have any issues at all figuring this out, or if something I said just doesn't make sense, I implore you to please let me know either in DM or in the comments below so I can address it in the best way that I can. If this helped, please consider subscribing to the channel and send it to someone trying to learn Solo Olm. Just warn them that it's really long. Or maybe don't. Who knows? Thank you guys for watching, and I hope you enjoyed the Perfect G content.